What do you really wish you would have known or someone would have told you before applying to the US to study?
So I think two main things. One, that I should be careful about money, about the costs of your education, right?
Right.
Because often I just wanted to go to America.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. That's the hunger, right? Yeah.
So
you want to fall bush.
Exactly. You just want to fall bush. And so regardless of how much it costs, if they give you the I-20, you'll take it. You'll go to the embassy and try to get your visa.
Right.
Then there's a lot of trouble on the other side of it. I wish I knew that, right? Because I graduated with some debt.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Anya Fambat, and I spark the heart conversations that challenge questionable cultural and societal norms that threaten the well-being of the African community. And I also share stories about growing up as Africans in Africa and in the diaspora. I strongly believe that normalizing open discussions and sharing experiences, whether good or bad, will not only make you find your voice, but will broaden your sense of purpose and empower others to do the same. So if you have ever tried challenging certain African cultural and societal doctrines, or if you have ever felt like it is about time that we confronted these issues in our African community and do better as a people, or even if you have always been interested in learning about the experiences of other Africans growing up in Africa and the diaspora, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Living African. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Living African. So today we will be continuing a conversation on the international student experience, and we will also talk about, or rather explore further opportunities that prospective students can take advantage of, especially those who plan on going to the United States of America. So I have here with me Richard Ewane, who is the founder of the Student Advisor, and he will be here to tell us more about these opportunities, and I hope that you can learn something from this episode by the end of the episode. So welcome, Richard. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure, connecting with you and having you on this platform. So let's just get right into it. Can you please just tell us about your story and, basically of being an international student in America and then also returning home meaning Cameroon, after you completed your studies?
Okay. So, my name is Richard Ewane. I was born and raised here in Cameroon. Primary school in Yaoundé, secondary school in Bamenda, And then I went to college in the States. I studied international business and economics at Ohio Northern University. Really small private school, middle of nowhere in Ohio. But, I loved it. When I first, the thing is, when I was doing my search here, I didn't know much about America. I thought America was all New City, and I remember we flew into DC and then we drove to Ohio.
Wow.
And I remember when we started driving past a bunch of cornfields, I remember thinking, what on earth?
Right. Is this the America?
Right. And so my school was dead in the middle of these cornfields, real small, like small town Ohio. So in the beginning, I was a bit worried. I was the first African kid to go to that school.
Oh.
There had never been an African kid there before. There were maybe 10 international students total. And so I remember, and the school was like 90% or like 80% Caucasian.
Oh.
And so you can imagine it was a bit different for me. And so I was a bit worried. But I'm actually quite thankful that I went there because it allowed me to re-examine a lot of the preconceived notions I had about, different races and how people behave and how people think and things like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I went to Ohio Northern. When I graduated, Ohio Northern actually hired me as an admissions counselor. So I did that job. I used my OPT actually to work as an admissions counselor there, and then came back home.
Right.
People thought I was crazy for coming home, but I had been out of Cameroon for 5 to 6 years. And, I felt like, let me come home, see how things are, and then I'll decide whether or not I want to stay here or I want to go back to America. Came home and it was just, it was quite a roller coaster.
A different world.
It was a different world. Readjusting when I first got home was difficult, really difficult, because I'd apply for jobs and they'd ask me who's backing you, like who's backing you up,
Right.
And I don't know what that means. Here's my experience. Here's my, here's all that. And they say, oh, that's great, but that's not enough. And so I had that rude awakening of coming home and realizing, oh, this is different. But at the same time, I quickly realized that there are a lot of opportunities here. If you can persevere and if you can find the right avenues, you can really be fulfilled here. So my first job when I came home, I worked at the Solomon Tandeng Muna Foundation. I was the assistant director there. I've always had the humanitarian bug. It's always been a thing for me, giving back, helping people out. And so the foundation was a great place for me to start because they do a lot of, philanthropy. They work with a lot of orphanages, a lot of street kids, and people who have disabilities as well. So it was great. I worked there for a few years. And then the U.S. Embassy hired me as educational advisor. And so I did that for a few years. And my job at the embassy was to, again, work with students who wanted to go and study in America. And that's when I really got to see the gap, right, in the service that is provided for our students here. I mean, I remember this being a high school student myself. I didn't know where to turn to. I didn't know. I mean, I had no information. I was just kind of feeling my way through the dark. And I was fortunate enough to get an admission, get my I-20, and get my visa. But a lot of people are not as fortunate. So many kids who are highly qualified just kind of fall through the cracks. Right. So my time at the embassy really made me see that. After working at the embassy for a few years, I actually quit and joined a political campaign. I joined a Cameroon's campaign for president because, again, I've always had this need to kind of play my part, right? Yeah. I felt like, I'm sitting here at the embassy, great salary, all of that, but I felt like I needed to be doing more. So this seemed like a great opportunity for me to do that. It was a fantastic experience. After that, I stayed on with Akere with Batoni Muna as his private secretary. And I also launched the student advisor to kind of try and help these populations that have this need, right? Cameroon students who are qualified, but just don't know how to go about getting these opportunities. So I kind of do those two things now, but mainly the student advisor.
Wow. What a story. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That was such a great summary. And we definitely will get deeper into each aspect of your life because I feel like a few things that you mentioned, a lot of international students, and basically I too could relate, to your own experience coming to America and everything like that. So we're definitely going to dig deeper into that shortly. Now, just explain to us your application process, like when you first made that decision that you were going to the United States, right? So why did you pick that little university in Ohio? And how was your application process and the interview process to get that F1 visa?
Right. So I wanted to study public relations, but because you never really, the visa is not guaranteed, right? So I was a student. I enrolled at the University of Boya. And while I was there, I would go to the cyber cafe every day and just kind of do research about what are the great public relations schools in America. And this small school, Ohio Northern University, was a really good school because the president of the Public Relations Society of America was a professor there. Wow. Right? And the president of the Public Relations Student Society of America was a student at Ohio Northern. I mean, this was a fantastic PR school. And so I thought, oh, okay, I want to study PR. This seems like a great school to be. And so I looked into what it takes to apply. Fortunately for me, I had already written the SAT when I was in high school, when I was in upper sixth. So I already had that score. And so I started working on the essay. I went to my teachers for letters of recommendation. Basically took my time and kind of filled out the application form, did the essay, did the letters of recommendation, asked for scholarships, and did all of that. Submitted my application. And I just kind of went back to school and, I wasn't really waiting for anything. I didn't know. I applied to one school and that was it. That was Ohio Northern, which is a mistake people make. I shouldn't have done that. But I didn't know any better back then. But fortunately, Ohio Northern eventually called and told me, hey, we would like to offer you admission. We'd like to offer you a partial scholarship. And so, so that was great. This was the one school I applied to. So I received my I-20 in the mail, and I went to the embassy. And I think, I'm not sure, I should have been denied a visa, honestly. When I came back on my interview, the things I said, about how I chose the school and all of that, I should have been denied a visa. Someone there, had so much goodwill. I don't know. I got lucky. Because I remember being asked, why did you choose the school? And my answer was, I found it online.
Oh.
What? That doesn't mean anything, right?
Right.
And so I think I kind of got lucky. Most people, unfortunately, are not as lucky. And so it is all these things, my experience applying, my experience going through the interview, my experience as an international student that eventually brought me to think, maybe I can actually help bridge the gap between the students and the opportunities that are out there.
Wow, that's interesting. So basically, I actually discovered that we kind of share similar stories, especially not necessarily at the embassy, because I think I was a little bit more prepared, but thankfully we were both given the visas. But like just coming to America, right? I also came to like a very small private school in Michigan, actually, Madonna University. It was like a Catholic school. Like I was probably the only Black person in most of my classes. Very few international students as well, in the middle of a very, very small town, Livonia in Michigan. And that was also the only school I applied to. In fact, I wouldn't even say I applied to, my dad applied to. And that was just because one of his friends was a teacher out there. So he just wanted me to be around someone.
School?
Sorry?
Was a teacher at that particular school?
Yeah, at the school. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so he just wanted me to be around someone familiar, like a Cameroonian and stuff. But he was the only Cameroonian, like the only African teacher in the entire school, And I had hoped to study pharmacy, but that school did not even offer a pharmacy program. I just did like prerequisites to get into the pharmacy school. And then after that, I moved to Ohio, actually. I was in the University of Toledo, which should be about 2 to 3 hours away from Ohio Northern. So, so that's where I went to pharmacy school. And the rest is history. But it's kind of amazing how, we could have easily gotten misled, right? And we're just thankful that back then things were not as stringent as now in terms of like the processes, the application process and stuff. And I know you mentioned the SAT exams. For those who don't know, the SAT or SAT, like we call it back home, it's one of the exams that a lot of universities require for you to take if you're graduating from high school in order to, qualify for an admission into the university. And the higher your scores, the better. So that was such an experience. Even though for me, per se, like my parents, actually, my dad especially helped me with a lot of my application process. But for those who don't have that luxury of having their parents, helping them out, I feel like this podcast episode will be very, very resourceful for them, which we will find out shortly. Now, you spoke about you being the only international, basically the only African in that school. Like, what experiences stood out to you, like when you were studying in school, like culture shock or just people not understanding your culture or people not understanding where you're coming from? Like, what are those fun stories that we all have?
I remember, because I didn't start in the fall. I started in the spring.
Me too.
So I showed up to campus like February, and I remember getting on campus and kind of walking around and going to the international office and asking, are there Black people here? What's going on? And so they told me, there's a Black student union, their meeting is every Thursday in this building. So I was like, oh, great. Next Thursday, I'm going there. Meanwhile, back in the residence hall, back in the dorm, I remember one of the first evenings, I get a knock on my door. And I look through the little peephole and I see 5 white kids. And I think, oh, no. What, all the stories we hear growing up, like, about racism and all those things. And I just thought, oh, my God, no. What's about to happen? What am I going to do? Am I about to be assaulted? Stuff like that. But I opened the door and because, what am I going to do, run away? So I open the door and they're like, hey, are you new? I'm like, yeah, I just got here like 2 days ago. And they said, "Oh, what's your name?" And I'm like, "My name is Richard. Where are you from?" And I say, "Cameroon." And the usual question was, "Oh, where's that?"
Right.
I'm like, Central Africa, all of that. And they go, "Oh, can we come in?" And I go, Sure, whatever. Coming in." And we talked for like 5 hours.
Whoa.
I mean, we were super curious, how is it where you're from? How did you get here? All these questions. I mean, they were genuinely curious.
Yeah.
And they helpful as well, because they were like, "Oh, if you ever need to go shopping, just let us know. We'll drive you. Here's my number. I'm down in room 107. We play Xbox every Wednesday evening. Please join us." So that for me was the first kind of, it was a bit surprising to me. I didn't, like, growing up here, I didn't expect that. Especially because when I went to the Black Student Union meeting, I didn't get the same warm
reception.
So I remember calling my mom and going, "I am so confused. I'm so confused. Like, the people who look the most like me were not as welcoming as the other kids." So I'm glad that happened that way, because it allowed me to kind of expand my horizons and move past, prejudices, my own prejudices growing up here. For me, that was the biggest kind of shock. It was, wow, this is, people really are just people. Right.
Right.
For me, that was the biggest thing for me. The other thing, obviously, was just food.
Right.
I had a hard time. I remember walking into the cafeteria the first day and looking at a bunch of things I didn't recognize. Then I saw chicken. And I'm like, "Oh, I know what that is."
Right.
So I grabbed a bunch of chicken and then I tasted.
Salt and pepper.
What is this? Like, what is this? Like, this is not chicken. This is, I don't know, it's plastic. I don't know what this is. But there's a seasening problem here.
Right.
But obviously, eventually, you get used to it.
Yeah. Oh my God. I really look forward to, like, hearing, like, all of these stories, because, like, we all have, like, special experiences that we had, which is super hilarious, and sometimes even sad, So, like, in terms of the classes, like, how did you adapt to the accents and, just the courses, back home, our courses were relatively harder, in my own opinion, especially in high school. Like, my freshman and sophomore years, that's my first 2 years in college here, were like a smooth ride. The only obstacle was just that they gave us so many assignments. Oh my God, they gave you so many homework assignments. They keep you busy, even though it's easy. They keep you really busy. So how did you, like, accommodate to all that? How did you get acclimated to, like, the education system?
I think, because I was in public relations and I've always liked, communications and things like that, honestly, it was pretty seamless. I got there and I didn't really have much trouble. I did have some problems with the accent, at the beginning. There was a lot of things I would miss in class because I didn't like, they would pronounce words differently and things like that. And I just follow. But that passed pretty quickly. And you know how it is in small schools, professors are very accessible. I mean, I didn't even need to interrupt during class. I would just wait. And after class, I'd go to their office and they'd take an hour or whatever, however much time they needed to explain things to me. So it honestly was pretty seamless for me. It's when I switched over to international business that it became a little trickier for me, because there's quite a bit of mathematics involved, and I was a history literature student.
Okay.
That's when things became, I had to work a lot harder to survive.
Right.
But because the small towns are so, I don't know about you, but I loved it in my small town.
Yeah, I love small town.
People are super friendly.
Yeah.
Professors are accessible.
It's a tight-knit community.
Very tight-knit community, exactly. So I don't know. I didn't have a hard time, kind of adjusting to the educational system. Like you said, it wasn't very difficult, but it was very enjoyable. I liked the way, how here it's difficult to challenge a teacher.
Right. Oh yeah.
This is how things are. Here, you can't really say, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. How dare you, right?
How dare you? So I loved the fact that I could say, I disagree, and have an exchange with the professor.
Right.
They would enjoy it. Yeah. So it was pretty smooth transition for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. Now, when you were done with school, I know you mentioned that you had a year of OPT. And for those who don't remember what an OPT is, it's just like an additional year that the United States Immigration Services, they actually give you an extra year after you graduate, maybe to use that as your experiential year to find a job and stuff, but you have just that 1 year. And you can only stay past the 1 year if the company decides to sponsor you a work visa, to be eligible to continue working in the US, or if not, you'd have to go home. Now, you mentioned that you spent your OPT as an admissions counselor. Like, what prompted you to do that? And did you pave the way for more international students, especially from Africa, to come to that school?
So when I first got there, they didn't have an orientation process for international students because I didn't have many. So one of the first things I did was help them set that up. I worked with the director of international missions to kind of say, hey, it might be nice when we get here to have a whole thing. And after I got there, I think they actively began to recruit African students because, truth be told, they never had reached thought about Africa before. And then this kid from Cameroon applies and they're like, whoa, what? And then I got there and I fit in quite nicely. And, most people, I got along with a lot of people, my professors, my friends and things. So I think after that, they said, maybe there's some potential out there. Let's start applying. I remember my third year, there were 2 Cameroonian students who actually came to my school. And by then there were 10 other African students. But there was a lot of more and more kids from Saudi Arabia, because the Saudi Arabian government would pay for their education. And then obviously more and more Asian kids as well. But in terms of my job as admissions counselor, I wasn't really working in an international office. And when I usually tell people I work in admissions, they assume I work with international students.
Yeah.
But I actually worked with American students. So I recruited in New York and West Virginia and all these places. And so my kids were American kids. But the thing about it is it gave me insight into exactly what happens when you apply.
Right.
So when your application gets there, what happens, right? When they're reading your essays, what are they looking for? So it really gave me, because this was my job. My job was to receive these applications and read the essays and look at their transcripts and all of that. And so it really gave me that insight into, when we send our transcripts or when we write our essays, we shouldn't write this way, we should write this way.
Right.
We should emphasize this and not that, And so that it kind of got the ball rolling in my head in terms of I can probably put these skills to good use back in home.
Right. Well, thank you so much. So let's talk about you coming back home, right? That's always the fun part.
Oh boy.
Right. Actually, so I know I would only imagine that, based on the passion that you've always had to have an impact in the community, especially your own community, which is Cameroon, that was probably one of the things as well that prompted you to want to move back to Cameroon. So how was that transition like? Wait, did you have days where you just regretted that decision and you were just frustrated?
Look, so what happened when I first got home, it was pure ecstasy. It was fantastic. I was back home with my family, and everything was great. And then maybe 4 months in, you realize, I better find something to do.
Right.
So you start looking for jobs, and then there's that a rude awakening of, it's not as simple as applying for a job here. There's a lot. Unless you're applying for a multinational or something like that, applying locally it's tough because there's a lot of networking involved. And so if you don't know anyone, it's difficult for you to kind of break into that system. And so, there were moments when I thought, why on earth did I come back to this place? What? This is the worst decision I ever made. I never should have come back. I should have just stayed in America and, just stayed there.
Yeah.
But you have that. But then if you're able to kind of hang in there and find things that you're interested in doing. And so, for example, one of the things I did, this sounds kind of interesting, but I started a record label when I came home.
Wow.
Yeah, because I always loved music. And so when I started working at the Mona Foundation, there's a recording studio there, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make the most out of this situation. So I started a record label. This got me connected to so many people. This was, I mean, really fantastic opportunity. And then working at the foundation, I got to do all these really great work, working with orphanages, helping these kids. So putting them through school, teaching them trades that they could use, after, because usually in a lot of these orphanages, they come in really young. Yeah. And then by the time they're 18, they have to leave, right? So we make sure they learn some kind of skill that they can use to survive when they leave the orphanage. So I got to do all these great things. And doing all this that I now met someone at the U.S. Embassy. And they learned my background and they thought, oh my goodness, because there had never been a Cameroonian educational advisor at the U.S. Embassy before. Right. It was always it was reserved for Americans who are here, and so they thought, maybe if we went in another direction with a Cameroonian who has applied, has gone to college, has worked in admissions, he may be better able to connect with these Cameroonians who are trying to go and study. And that's how that kind of got started. But yeah, coming home is a tough choice to make, and it doesn't work out for everyone. I shouldn't sit here and act like if you can just persevere, it'll be fine. That's not true. Right. It doesn't work out for everyone. For some people, they come here and even after 5, 6, 7 years, they're super frustrated because things are just not working out the way that they want. So that was my situation. I'm just fortunate that things worked out for me. But again, that's just me. Everyone's circumstances and everyone's kind of the outcomes are not the same for everyone. Right.
That's true. So let's talk about your role at the U.S. Embassy as an education advisor, right? You've already told us how you got that gig. Now, what exactly did you do? Like, were you directly connected to the department that offers the visas to the students, or you just advise them to know what to do when going to get a visa?
So I didn't work at the consular section, who are the people who give the visas, but I worked very closely with them. So when students would come and I would work with them, I didn't do like visa interview preparation, but during my presentations, I would always invite someone from consular to come and give a presentation about, hey, when you come to the interview, here's how to prepare. Here's what we want to hear. Here's what we don't want to hear. You see what I mean? So, and I had meetings with them every Thursday where they would literally tell me, when students come in, this is what we ask them. This is what, when they say things like this, immediately they're disqualified. So I have a very good understanding of kind of the intricacies of the visa interview. But the thing about being an educational advisor at the embassy is that there's so many things I couldn't say to students, right? Some students would get denied visas and I'd be shocked. So I'd go to the consular section and say, what happened? I work with this kid. He's brilliant. He has a scholarship. What's going on? And then they'd say, well, here's why he was denied. We can't tell him and neither can you, right? Yeah. Here's why. So after doing this several times, I can today look at a kid's documents, ask them how the interview went, and know exactly what happened, right? And this is one of the things that we do is kind of consulting for people who sometimes maybe they've been denied the visa already or they're about to go for their visa interview. We look at the documents and we try to kind of steer them in the right direction. Right. And the first thing we tell them obviously is don't tell lies. Right. Like they have to lie and they really don't. And so I'll give you an example. There's a student who, when I worked at the embassy, I remember came and saw me and said, I've been denied a visa and I can't for the life of me understand why. So I said, okay, how did your interview go? Tell me what happened. And I'm not going to say what school she was going to, but it's a school, there's a lot of Cameroonians there. And she said, they asked me why I chose the school. And I said, okay, what did you say? And she goes, well, I just told them, I found it online and they have a great, physics program. Oh. And I go, but that's not true, right? No, that's true. I'm like, look, I'm not a consular officer. I'm trying to help you. Just tell me the truth. How did you pick the school? And she goes, well, my uncle is a professor there. Okay. Why didn't you tell him that? Right. Oh, because I worked with some consultant who told me not to tell him I know anyone. I just thought, oh my God. what is more logical than going to school because your uncle teaches there? It makes perfect sense, right? You don't have to pay for housing. He'll be there to help you integrate the community, to help you with your classes. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Right. I said, you know what? Go back and tell them you lied. Tell them you got some really bad advice, and you know what? Now you're just going to tell the truth. And she went back and she got her visa.
Wow.
You see, so a lot of students will stand in their own way.
Yeah.
Right? This is because they work with people and they receive advice from people who have no idea what they're talking about. Right. And so hopefully those are one of the things that we try to kind of deal with. Yeah.
Right. So I would probably say, just not being truthful is probably one of the most common reasons why a visa is being denied.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And once you tell a single lie, regardless of how small it is, once they find out you're lying, you're done.
Right. It makes it more difficult.
Right. That's why you'll see some people, their interview will last 15 seconds and they don't understand why. You go to a school where there's a lot of Cameroonians. They know there's a lot of Cameroonians there. How did you find the school? Oh, I found it online. That's not true. Someone told you about the school. Right? Tell us how you found out about the school. Why do you have to lie about that? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And once you do that, they're done with you. They just say, I'm sorry, but you don't qualify by. Right?
Right.
People are shocked. Oh, this person just woke up on the back side of the bed and decided not to give me a visa. That's not true. That doesn't happen.
Right. Wow. It seems like you have a lot of insight, on the application process and what actually makes a student very qualified. And that's why I want us to really dive deep and talk about the student advisor. So based on your experience, it's very obvious that, you had that motivation to start the student advisor, from everything you've been through and all the resources that you have had and used, which could also be in turn resourceful to prospective students trying to go to the United States of America. So basically, I know you mentioned about the gaps and the needs, that this innovation, which is the student advisor, could fill. So can you further elaborate on that?
Yeah, so Cameroon, I think there are about maybe 2,000 Cameroonian students studying in America now. There could be way more. We have so many more qualified students who just fall through the cracks because they don't have information. When I started working at the embassy, one of the things I started doing was, I did a real media blitz. So I would go on TV, I would be in the papers, everywhere. I would do Facebook Live, I would do everything. And we ended up having like a 17% increase. By the time I was in my third year, we had like a 20% increase in the number of Cameroonian students studying in the States. Again, I'm not saying that was all me, but I'm saying that disseminating correct information is really important for our students because they don't know. You have all these kids who have 5 A's and 4 A's and at the advanced level. They should be going to MIT and Stanford and Berkeley, but they just they don't know they can't. Right? They don't know that they can, and even when they've seen other people do it, they don't know how to go about it. Right? So what we do is we take students from the application process all the way through the visa interview. So we will help you the school selection, right? We will look at your profile, look at what you're trying to study, look at your grades, look at all of that. We will help you choose the school that corresponds to your needs, both academic and financial. Because again, a lot of people get into a lot of trouble going to schools that they can't afford.
Right.
And then either have to drop out because they can't pay anymore, or they have these ridiculous loans at the end of their education. So one of the things we try to do is make sure, how much do you think you can afford, right? You tell us that, we try and find a school that suits your financial as well as your academic needs.
Right.
We help students with their essays, right? Because the thing about the application process in America is it's holistic, right?
Yeah.
They look at your grades. Yes, they look at your grades.
It's not only about school.
Right. But they want to read your essay. They want to see your letters of recommendation. What are your extracurricular activities, right? So we prepare students. Often we start working with them when they're in lower sixth. That way we can say, you don't have any extracurriculars. You need to get involved in something else. Right. Whether it's some kind of club on campus. Or volunteering somewhere, whatever it is, we need to get that on your, kind of on your resume because it bodes well for you when you apply. Right. So we helped with the essays, even letters of recommendation, because our teachers, their style it doesn't always match what Americans are trying to see.
Yeah.
Right? We are so focused on grades, right? So
oh,
when
yeah.
you ask people to write a letter of recommendation, he would say, oh, this guy, he had a 19 average and then he had 5 A's. They know that. The schools have this
Yeah, they have the
information.
transcripts.
Right, they have all of that. So we coach the teachers to say, hey, don't tell them that's they already know that. What they want to know, they want to know about this kid. What kind of kid is he? What is it like teaching him? Right? Those are the kinds of things they're interested in knowing. So we do that as well. Even with credential evaluation, we help the students complete their credential evaluation. Basically, the whole application process, we work with them to get that done and done properly. Now, we just started a boot camp, actually, which is reserved for very, very high achieving students. These kids who deserve and who are qualified to get full scholarships.
Right.
Where we actually bring in SAT tutors to help them prepare. So because as you know, when they've looked at your transcript, they'll look at your SAT as well.
Yeah.
Right. So we bring in a tutor who works with them for about a month to kind of give them, because a lot of these kids are kids who they're very good at math.
Yeah.
Right? They're not really teaching them the math as much as they're teaching them the techniques to approach
the questions. Yes.
Right. So we do that. As I said, we work on the essays, work on the recommendations, all those things. And then once they have their admission and they have their scholarships, we do like preparation for the visa interview. Right. Because we basically run mock interviews with them. That's what
Awesome.
We do those like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, as much as we need to, until you are fully prepared
and confident.
To go right and confident at you. Because again, the practice makes it so that you're not as nervous on the day of the interview, or even if you are, it's easier for you to appear to be confident when you've rehearsed and you know what to do and what to say. We don't tell them exactly what to say because, again, that's not our job. Yeah. But what we do is we let them know the attitudes and kind of what is the information that these people, the visa interview, the consular officer is actually looking for. Right. That way, we're giving the answers. They're not rambling on about things that have little or no value to the interview. So that's what we try to do. We also do at least once every month we have an orientation, which is free and open to the public, where we just kind of tell people, look, if you want to go and study in America, here's what you need to do. Right. Here's some resources to help you choose your school. Here's what you need to do about your essay. Here's what you need to do about your recommendation. Completely open and free to the public. And we just give out this information. That way, students who are self-starters and don't need us to do the work for them can do it by themselves. And that's perfectly great as well.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. I mean, this sounds like such a very, very great and needed program and opportunity that every student who wants to go to the United States should take advantage of. I honestly think that, life would have been way easier and better. I probably would have made better choices if I had this kind of opportunity when I was, coming to the United States, because it's really amazing how much we just try to figure it out by ourselves, because we don't have any guidance. Whenever I look back, I always tell my friends, like, if I had to do this again, I definitely would have done it differently. Like, I should have sought advice. I should have, done a lot more research. But then back then as well, we didn't really have the luxury that the kids have today of fast internet. You always had to go to the cyber cafe. We didn't have the smartphones. Yeah, it was so slow, so we didn't have all of that, all of those resources that the kids have now. So this is definitely an opportunity worth exploring. Now, I know you mentioned another big thing too was that you mentioned that it's always advisable to start from lower seed, because for us, some of us even graduated high school before we started even the application process, and sometimes, most of the times, the application deadlines are even closed. You have to, send emails here and there. So and also, I feel like this also goes to the parents, because a lot of parents, they keep it away from their children that they plan on sending them abroad. Right. You know what I mean? Because I guess they don't want it to be in their head, and then they don't want them to get laxed and not focus in school. So they just have to find that balance, because I didn't know there was speculations that, in high school, some kids that will go abroad, especially when in secondary school, we were going abroad for Christmas and, like, so they already know that, oh yeah, this one after high school, I don't think she's going to be here, So, but then again, I didn't know. Because even the holidays that we went to, they were always like surprises. Like my dad would come take us from school and he'd be like, oh yeah, it's your granddad's memorial or it's your this. And then we find ourselves driving to the airport in Douala, so it was always a surprise to us. So it's like, we never really knew what the future held in terms of like whether we were going to go abroad. And after high school, so that kind of limited us even trying to explore our options, because there's no need for me to explore services and pay someone to help me to go abroad when I don't even know that my parents can afford it. They haven't communicated that to me. So I just feel like the parents will have to find that balance, or maybe even start the application process. Maybe if they want to do that for the kids, maybe like, contacting you to start that or something. But it's very, very important to start as early as possible.
That's true. So what I'm trying to do now, and I'm talking to a lot of schools, is kind of set up study abroad programs at these various schools where when their kids get to lower sixth, those who are interested in studying abroad, we start working when they're still in lower sixth. They have more flexibility. People don't want, when a kid is in upper sixth, the parents don't want them thinking about, they want them to focus on the A levels. Yeah. So what we try to do now is to get them starting in lower sixth, prepare for the SAT, and then write it take the SAT before they go to upper sixth, right? Then in upper sixth, you can focus on your GC and all of that. But then once your GC is done, we can apply. Because what I've realized is parents don't want them applying earlier than that. Yeah. They just don't, because they feel like these people are not going to be focused. Because I tried to tell, I've tried to talk to parents and talk to schools, and they just say, no, until they're done with their A levels, we don't even want to hear it. So at least we can get the SAT out of the way, let them do their GCE, and then, apply right after that. Right. It's like you said, it's very difficult to get a parent to let the kid know that they're going to travel, because the tendency, and they're not wrong. I mean, the tendency is that the kids might think, oh, I'm going to America. So,
I don't have to put that much effort.
Right. Exactly. So,
So, I was also going to ask, if you actually make tours, like speaking gigs, like in schools, like just going to schools personally, having that direct contact with the schools and, motivating and encouraging the students as well as the teachers to encourage students to participate in such a wonderful program. Because like I said, oh my goodness, even if my dad was aware of such a program, he definitely would have taken advantage of it. Because it's extremely important and very resourceful, So talking about, when did you start the student advisor?
So I started in 2017. Okay. Right when I left the U.S. Embassy. Started the student advisor. But as I told you, I left the embassy to work in a political campaign. Campaign. And I quickly found out that I couldn't do the two at the same time. You know how it is. A presidential campaign,
it's very hectic.
It's like 24/7. I mean, it was crazy. So I put it on hold, and then once the election was over, so 2018, then we
got back to it. Yeah. Right. So I'm sure since then you have worked with a handful of students, correct?
A lot of students I'd say our success rate with people who are not in the boot camp is probably around 70%. Right. Because again, you do everything you can do, but at the end of the day,
they have to do their part.
Right, their part. So you can work with a kid. He just doesn't do well on the SAT. Right. And then so his transcripts are not that great. He doesn't do that well on the SAT. They insist to say, because with us, if we feel like we can't deliver, we are very upfront and we'll say, look, with your current grades, we're not sure that you can get into a good enough school and get the visa. Now, you then take the decision as to whether or not you want to continue and take the risk. Right. But we tell you upfront, you need to find a way to up your grades, maybe go do a bachelor's and then try and do as well as you can. Or do even an HND, and then after those 2 years, we can try and see if we can transfer. But if the student and their parents say, no, we want to do it now, okay, we'll go ahead and we'll get you a school. Try and prepare you as best we can, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. And sometimes it just, maybe the student went to the interview and their nerves got the best of them.
Right.
Things like that do happen as well. And sometimes we'll tell the kid, this particular issue in your profile, we don't know how you're going to circumvent that, but it's probably going to be an issue at your interview. And they go to the interview and it's an issue and they don't get the visa. So we try to do it as best as we can. And that's why we started doing this boot camp, because this very high achieving students, we can pretty much guarantee, right? Mm-hmm. There are 300 schools in America that give full scholarships to international students. 300, right? So there are a lot of scholarships, but you have to qualify. Yeah. So with the boot camp, we are trying to, kind of pick those kids who we know are qualified and then send them right, to the right schools and get them full scholarships.
Right. Awesome. And I think that's very important because, like I said, for me, I went to the private school in Michigan, which was super expensive, by the way. But I went there just because my dad's friend was a teacher there. Right. But they didn't give any scholarships. So I literally had to pay everything 100% out of pocket. And that was hell. Like, that was ridiculous, So, I mean, having that guy, if I had that guidance to find a school, even though he was a teacher there, I was pretty much independent. Like, I wasn't a crybaby, like trying to, I did everything by myself. So it wasn't even any difference to me, and I didn't really have a lot of culture shock because I had traveled, before. So it was one of those things that I just had to find my way around, and I made friends. I made, African and American friends and stuff. So it was easy for me to get incorporated into the system, but if I could find, a better school, if I had this guidance before even coming to America to find a better school where I could get as many scholarships as possible, that would have been awesome, So this is such a very great initiative. And what is the website for which, students can, prospective students and parents can reach you guys, or to at least look at the services that you offer?
Yes. So it's just thestudentsadvisor.com. So www.thestudentsadvisor.com. It's really as simple as that. If people want to have more information as to what we do and what services we provide, they could just go to the website and it's pretty user friendly.
Right.
Also, they can also write to us. They can write to us on WhatsApp. If they want, the number, is +1 614-697-4455. They can send us messages and we'll answer all the questions they have. If they're here back home, they can call us directly. It's 680-230-570.
And that is the area code 237. That's Cameroon +237.
Correct.
Perfect. And I'm going to have all of that in the show notes anyways.
Yeah. And there's a Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. I mean, so they can, we're not difficult to find. We're not hard to find.
Right. That's awesome.
Just real quick to your point about people, insisting on sending kids, for example, just because there's someone who teaches there. Americans are very independent. Yep. And when we get to America, we learn very quickly. Right. Be very independent. So he or she is not going to depend on this person who is there.
Right.
Now, if they're going to live with this person, that way it makes it cheaper for them. Okay, that's valid, right?
Yeah.
Just to have this person kind of overseeing, it's not necessary.
Yeah, it's not.
I didn't have anyone. I went to the middle of nowhere in Ohio, no relatives, nothing. But I, integrated the society so much. I ended up becoming homecoming king.
Oh, nice. Oh my goodness. Awesome.
It was so, you know how America is. Quickly you forget you're a stranger.
Right.
You're a foreigner. So there's so many more important factors that people should be looking at.
That's very true, because even though my dad's friend was a teacher there, I probably saw him like once a week or whenever I took his class. I was in the dorms anyways. I was in the dorms for the first 2 years, and then I moved to an apartment and I found everything myself. I was basically independent. So I didn't even have a choice. So that's a very important point to make. So based on all of your experience, what do you really wish you would have known or someone would have told you before applying to the US to study?
So I think two main things One, that I should be careful about money, about the costs of your education, right?
Right.
Because often I just wanted to go to America.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. That's the hunger, right? Yeah.
So
you want to fall bush.
yeah, exactly. You just want to fall bush. And so regardless of how much it costs, if they give you the I-20, you'll take it, you'll go to the embassy and try to get your visa.
Right.
And then there's a lot of trouble on the other side of it. I wish I knew that, right? Because I graduated with some debt, right? So I wish I knew this. And I graduated with some debt because I didn't know that this would become so difficult for me to take care of.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other thing is just that it's possible.
Yeah.
That there are scholarships if you work hard.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
That's true.
I had good grades. I could have gotten into a better school and gotten a better scholarship. I just didn't know. Right? I just didn't know. And some schools have this technique where they will jack up the sticker price of the school, so they'll know it really costs like $30,000. They'll tell you it costs $42,000.
Well, yeah.
And then they'll say, "Oh, we're giving you a $10,000 scholarship." They're not giving you a scholarship.
That's true. Right.
What I'm saying? I just wish I knew that. If you've worked hard and you have good grades, there are a lot of scholarship opportunities in America. A lot.
Right.
I wish I didn't know that. I didn't know that. With schools, you just see the names of certain schools and you're just afraid. Or you see a sticker price. A lot of the schools that cost the most give the most in terms of scholarships.
Right.
The MIT and all these schools that cost a lot of money also have the biggest endowments and have a lot more money to give students.
Sure, that's true.
That's right. So
that's
that's what I wish I knew. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something I wish I knew as well, and talking about like masking the so-called scholarship in the tuition, like I feel like a lot of schools also do the whole out-of-state and in-state tuition thing. So it makes it seem pleasant, but I'm like, I mean, every other student is paying an in-state tuition. Right. So, I mean, it's not like privilege per se for me to be paying in-state even if I'm an international student, which is considered out of state. Like I need more than that. I need more scholarships, because that's also what kind of blinds international students. And they think, oh yeah, I mean, at least I have a discount, any discount is doable.
But you really don't. Yeah, but you really don't.
Right. You really don't.
It's an illusion.
If anything, actually, the schools benefit more from international students because a lot of the Americans or permanent residents, they take student loans. So it's like to find someone that's willing to pay cash to you, like they would literally do everything to keep you, so you just have to further explore those opportunities that you can take advantage of as well.
Right.
and
international students tend to pay a lot more in the cost of education than American students.
Yeah,
which is I mean, I won't say it's unfair because it's their country.
It's their country.
But we have to be smart enough to now find the opportunities to lower that cost as much as possible.
Yeah,
which is one of the biggest things we try to do for our students.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you coming on here and just sharing our platform with us and sharing your story and the services that you offered. You're definitely making an impact in the African community and the Cameroonian community as a whole. I can only wish you the best. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come talk to us and inspire future students who will like to explore those opportunities. And I really hope that a lot of people reach out to you, a lot of parents as well, reach out to you for that guidance because you have that expertise, you have all those years of experience, you have a better story and a better insight and perspective to address such issues. So I just want to thank you. And I hope that, this conversation doesn't really end here. A lot of people, a lot of parents and who are definitely sponsoring the students, can have more conversations and try to, find better ways of, helping their kids, who especially want to come to the United States. So I don't know if you have any last words to say before we close.
No, look, just thank you so much for having me on. I think what you're doing is really great.
Thank you.
Amplifying our voices in the way that you do, telling our stories. I think it's really fantastic. I'm a big fan of the show.
Thank you.
And thank you so very much for having me on.
Thank you so much. And the feeling is mutual. I'm also a big fan of your work, and I look forward to seeing, the greater impact that you will actually have in our community. And I'll tell everyone I know who's back home trying to come out here to reach out to you as well. And I would have all your contact information in the show notes for anyone who wants to reach out to you. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
That's it for today. Thank you for listening to our show. If you want to participate in the show or find out more helpful resources, then visit www.livingafricanpodcast.com for more information, or email us at hello@livingafricanpodcast.com. Also, don't forget to connect with us on all social media platforms at Living African Podcast. You can also connect with Anyo directly on Facebook or Instagram at Anyo Fambard. Thanks again for listening, and let's not forget to be more understanding and nicer to one another.